All right, we live?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, welcome. We got it set up. Nope, it's at 7. Joy. We have people in the chat. I don't know why it's not showing up there. I might just have to look at my phone. Oh, maybe because it's live. Oh, there we go. So, hey, Amber, Ashley, Joy, and Joyce. Welcome to the show tonight. We have my favorite person with us. I convinced him to join us, so... I thought he would be better to be speaking to the men. I actually do have some men sometimes that watch my show, which I think is funny. I'd rather not know about it if men are watching it, but this is for the men tonight. My husband also does a podcast that would be good for men on Tuesdays, correct, at noon?
Mm-hmm. In fact, I was thinking about just sharing this one. Then I don't have to do any tomorrow.
That's true. So this is going to be aimed more towards the men. We'll throw some stuff in there for the ladies as well, but we wanted to talk about just having a loving marriage and the different things that goes into that. So let's start out with what a biblical marriage looks like. Obviously, this is going to be different for every home. Should we put our disclaimers in here? Our home is not going to be like your home. I have to do that because, people say that I try to get wives to do stuff their husband doesn't want. So throw all the disclaimers in there for the haters and naysayers.
We usually assume people use common sense when they hear stuff, but people don't always use common sense too. So the disclaimers are for you.
Yeah. Disclaimers. Our marriage is not your marriage, but these are some things that we feel could help. I think defined according to even the world standard, I would call ours a happy marriage. I don't know. Are you happy?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you're pretty happy.
You told me I was happy.
I think you're pretty happy. I'm pretty happy. So I think comparatively, we have a happy marriage, and you can have happy marriages. And I know we hear a lot of stories, just from being in ministry and things of seemingly happy looking marriages that are anything but. So what would you say is a biblical marriage? What do you think a biblical marriage looks like to you? We can go over the men's roles and the wife's roles and all that. But
yeah, well, I mean, obviously, a man and woman, preferably on their first, on the first spouse, and doesn't mean somebody who's messed up in the past can't get it right, the second time. Don't give up if you're on your second spouse or whatever. Make that one work, but people who have been divorced and remarried, will tell you there's baggage that comes with it they'd rather not have. So always try to just stay married to who you are married to and make that one work. The next one probably won't be much better. And so, and then obviously the husband's the head of the household. So he's, the final authority on things, and the wife is to be in submission to the husband, and that's how God laid it out. That goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and it's throughout the Bible that's supposed to be done that way. And the world doesn't like that. The feminist crowd throws a big fit about it, but you know what? They can go do their therapy sessions and take their meds and get over it. That's true, whether they like it or not.
Do you think that in a biblical marriage, when people are trying to do it God's way, that it tends to be happier? I hear a lot of people screaming about how the divorce rate in Christian homes is just as high as the world's.
Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Christians aren't doing things a whole lot different than the world, though, is the problem. Because what people don't understand about marriage and even about being Christians is our culture still rubs off on us big time. And even though we're saved, a lot of times how we live, how we operate is almost identical to the culture that we live in. And that's the big problem right there. So in our culture, there's a lot of things that are extremely normal, but they're also very unhealthy. And they're so normal in our world that even Christian people, they think nothing of doing some of these things that are going to be detrimental to the marriage. And as a result, they're going to have the exact same problems. Just because you're saved doesn't mean if you do all the stuff that the world does, you're not going to have the problems they have. You're going to have the exact same problems that they have.
What are some of the things that you think the world does that Christians imitate in their own homes? Are you talking about like as far as sin or?
Well, yeah, I mean, just as far as, I guess just the normal things that cause problems. If you're like the world and, the husband is not the head of the household, that's going to create problems, and if you're trying to, if your wife, if you're trying to make her be a homemaker and a keeper of the home because you're the husband, but then also trying to make her provide a living too for the family, which is what a lot of people do. Because you have your typical women's roles that even in the lost world, they kind of understand women typically do this stuff. But at the same time too, they also make their wives, work jobs and provide. And as a result of them doing that too, the kids aren't being raised in the home. They're being stuck in the public school system. So their kids are coming home with all the problems that lost people's kids have too. And so, the biggest things that cause stress and problems in marriage, it's financial problems, it's the physical relationship and kids. Those are the three big things. So if you're doing everything just like the world does, if you're sleeping around before you get married, then you're going to bring a lot of baggage to the marriage that, this is the same baggage that the world has. And so you're going to have the same problems. If your day-to-day life is the same way, where, both of you are working, the kids are in the public school system, then just be prepared to have all the same problems that's causing stress and marriage problems in the world. So we have to do things different. The world is not getting it right. What they're doing is not in the Bible. And so just, trust God on this stuff. And and it's not even a matter of just trusting God, because we've got plenty of good examples, here on earth. There's plenty of Christian homes that you can look at where they're doing things the Bible way, and the product's a zillion times better. So, you don't even have to have faith to know that the Christian way is better. And that's one of the things I tell people too, about the IFB. You got a lot of people that are critical about the IFB, but show me a group that's turning out better families than Independent Fundamental Baptist. Show me one that's turned out better families, that's not heretics. I'll take that label. I'm not married to a label, but then, these people who are critical of the IFB, they'll get advice from the Ellen DeGenerates and, the
Oprah.
news media and Oprah. And people like that. And these people can't get it done. So, it just takes a little bit of common sense to know where the truth is at.
Austin asked, must be Southerner, what's y'all's social media policy? Many modern marriages being undermined and destroyed by this new cultural phenomenon.
I mean,
we don't really have policies.
So I don't think it's wrong to have policies. Here's where I think a lot of people go wrong. Some marriages, and maybe, let's say in a pastor's home, because a lot of times the pastor kind of sets a standard in a lot of things in the church. They might feel like, what, I can't be trusted on social media. I need a ton of accountability.
Well, especially if they've had like a past. Maybe they have messed up in the past. Right.
And if you need that, by all means, have it. But that doesn't mean everybody needs it. So when it comes to the way we do it in our marriage, she has her social media, I have my social media. And we don't really spy on each other. A lot of people have joint accounts. But the thing is, I could spy on her and she could spy on me real easy, because you can access all my stuff right there in our computer that's at home.
Same with mine.
Yeah, I leave my phone laying around all the time. I don't have any passwords or anything on my phone, so anybody can get on there and see all that stuff.
Our kids know. Our kids are on our phones constantly.
If you get insulted, I don't like something of yours on Facebook or whatever, it's probably because my kids were scrolling through my feed and I never even saw it.
Or if they do like something with you without you knowing.
Yeah, maybe
they might have accidentally.
They might have did it. So I think it's good to have things out in the open like that. There's a problem if you gotta have your phone password protected and all your stuff at the house, and your wife doesn't even. Yeah,
that's a big red flag.
Yeah, there's a problem there, but I I do think if people need accountability for stuff, that they should have it. But, we've been married 21
almost
years.
22 in April.
And we haven't had any problems to where we feel like we need to do anything extra than what we've done. We also got social media really late in life too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I believe that's Pastor Austin Wagner.
I don't know who he is.
He, the younger generation too, they live on that stuff a lot more. That's kind of how they communicate with everybody.
It's how more and more people are falling in love.
Right. Yeah. So the dangers are there.
Yeah.
For sure. But where we get ourselves in trouble in the IFB is we start making these kind of blanket rules for everyone, and not everybody needs them. So people just need to be honest enough with themselves and with each other to say, we need more. And if you need more rules, that's fine. Doesn't mean you're a terrible person, but
we do have policies. I've seen a lot of this lately going on about the Billy Graham rule. And I tend to agree with the Billy Graham rule. Basically, he was never alone with any other woman other than his wife.
Let's give that a different name. I don't want to.
I know, but for everything about Billy Graham, which, I'm not a Billy Graham fan at all.
Mike Pence has the same policy, too. He got criticized for that.
He does.
But I don't want to name it after him either.
But we don't know of any scandals involving Billy Graham and other women.
From what I understand, he never had any. As many problems as I have with him, as far as there's never even been any accusations as far as I know. So you got to give him credit there. But
so we have the Tommy and Cassandra McMurtry rule. And we pretty much decided, I don't know if we sat down and said, hey, let this be our rule. I think it was more from teaching from your dad. Mm-hmm. He always did the same thing.
Right.
He wouldn't even drive a woman alone, which we've always adhered to.
Yeah, and obviously people need to be really careful with that stuff. I think it's easier for us to be super careful, especially myself, because, having a public platform, being a pastor, I know there's people out there that would love nothing more than to catch me saying something, to be able to share a screenshot or something like that, where a lot of times people who don't have a public ministry or public platform, they feel safer. And occasionally, people will send me random messages, through Messenger or something like that. What I do for myself, I treat Messenger, I treat texting
like it's public.
like I'm commenting on a public post.
Yeah, me too.
And so anytime someone is sending me a question, even men sometimes, okay, I just assume
men that you don't know.
Yeah, I just assume that they are trying to set me up, and because people are like that. So I just don't say anything I wouldn't say very publicly. In fact, a couple of months ago, we were eating at Pizza Ranch with people from Tennessee. Okay, people from Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
Someone from another country. I forgot what country.
This is crazy.
Someone from another country was asking my opinion about some stuff.
And I hope he's watching right now, because he'll know who we're talking about.
Yeah, and I told him exactly what I thought, and it was in a private message, but, I knew the crowd that this character was from, and so I just said it as if it was on a public post that everyone could see. The next day, the guy that I was sitting next to from Tennessee at the restaurant showed me a screenshot on his phone of what I had said to that guy.
He had been passing it around.
Yeah. So, that's how fast news travels. And
I think it had happened that night. He had gotten it. He showed us the next day.
Yeah. So, but
just within a couple hours.
So the thing is, I understand with me, people are always trying to set me up.
Bait you, set you up.
Yeah. So the thing is, I'm not even tempted. If any woman were ever to message anything flirty to me, I'm not even. I would never get tempted, because I'm probably getting set up. And I'm not so arrogant to think that
We were a lot more naive though, before you got YouTube.
Yeah.
We're just trusting in general, and we try to trust people, and once you got the public platform, crazy stuff started happening.
Yeah. So the thing is, there's there's virtually no temptation
No.
for me with this stuff, because I understand there's so many people out there just anxious to nail me, but other people who aren't, they don't have any kind of, they're not well known publicly or whatever, they don't feel that way, and so, or they might not, the temptation might be greater for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I don't, and again too, I don't have like anonymous accounts and things to communicate with.
No.
So it's just one of those things where I do think, your wife and your husband should have access to see what's going on, and and obviously if they need to check on you every week, you probably have some problems. But either way,
there are accountability things you can do to covenant eyes. I know if anyone wants to sin, there's ways around it, but that will make it harder. That will make it more difficult, especially if you are honest and you register all your phones and have it installed on all your phones, all your computers, tablets, iPads, whatever. That will make it a little bit more difficult. But let's talk about, so obviously I believe the wife's role. I'm more of a traditional wife. I do believe in the biblical role of a wife. I still in my vows said obey. I haven't always been perfect at it. I am definitely, we're both firstborns, so it's taken.
When I do marriage vows for people, we say love, honor, and cherish for the guy, and the lady, love, honor, cherish, and obey.
He hasn't taken it out yet.
I mean, it's biblical, and if this lady has no intention of obeying the guy she's going to marry, I'm not performing that ceremony. I prefer anybody that I do a ceremony for stay married.
Yeah.
So far, so good. So hopefully it stays that way. But if she's like, I'm not saying that, then
problem number one.
Yeah, hopefully they'll let me know before. And it's like, all right, well, you know what? Then you can go find some lesbian to do your marriage vows for you, because I'm not doing it.
Fair enough. So yes, I believe that the wife's role, and anyone who watches this show knows that, we're for traditional marriage. We're for traditional roles in marriage. So you can refer back to some of my earlier videos about this. But since this is mainly for men, and we're going to hit on, this isn't all going to be just like, men take control of your home. We're going to hit on the men who have taken it too far with that. Because we're seeing that a lot more, even amongst Baptist.
And these guys, no, you haven't taken it too far when it comes to controlling your home.
Yeah.
You've lost control.
Well, yeah.
Of your home. That's why you are the way you are with what we're going to be talking about, because you've lost control.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about things that can get in the way of a loving marriage. Specifically, we might hit on some of the things with ladies too, but just, past baggage that maybe men or women could have. That's obviously going to make it a little bit more difficult. I feel like we've been blessed, and people have even mocked us for this because we were pure when we got married. Our first kiss was at the wedding altar, and almost like we live in a fantasy world. Like we don't know, I don't know how tough someone might have it because of past baggage, but is that something to be mocked for? I mean, we still had to work at that.
No, anybody that would mock that, just ask them how many times have you been married. It's probably either 0 or more than once too, because there's nothing to laugh at. It enables you to go into marriage with a lot less baggage. So, yeah.
And we've seen the effects that baggage has, which is one of the reasons we worked towards not having it. When we got married, people have even mocked the fact that you grew up in a pastor's home, and you must have had it perfect and blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, what are some ways past baggage in a guy's life can kind of affect him from being a loving husband?
Well, yeah, so, people always talk about the importance of trust in a marriage. And, but then everybody also kind of act like, you owe people trust. But, the truth is, you have to earn trust. And a lot of times, men, one of the reasons they're so suspicious of things with their wives is because of past women that were garbage. And they know that too. And so they have a very negative outlook on women because they think that they all are unfaithful, that they are all a bunch of you-know-whats, and they're sleeping around and all that kind of stuff. And so them getting what they wanted from all those other women gave them a very negative outlook on women. And it's a lack of respect for a woman. Okay? And this is just some stuff I'm going to say that's going to be foreign to the world, but it's just true. Okay? If you have to have a very low, or you think very low of any woman to think that she will sleep with you when you're not married.
Yeah.
And understand, ladies, you want to be respected. You want a guy that, values you and, thinks you're great and all these things. But then you'll let a guy, when he's, all crazy, with lust, make you feel like garbage if he doesn't sleep with you. So just understand, these guys that are pressuring these women all the time, making them feel bad for these things, just don't fall for that. That guy is a garbage guy. He has no respect for you. And so what makes you think when he had no respect for you before you got married? He didn't think that you were good enough or important enough that before he slept with you that he made a commitment, that he put a ring on your finger, that he married you. He didn't do all those things first that you should have, and then all of a sudden you guys are sleeping around before you got married, and then you get married, and all of a sudden now he's going to respect you just because you finally did the marriage vows? No, his opinion of you is still going to be the same. He doesn't have a high level of respect for you. And so, ladies, it's okay for you to demand that respect, okay? But you can't you can't expect it after you've been sleeping around doing all that kind of stuff. So just don't settle. Just say, I'm not going to marry a guy that's immoral, that will do that with me. I'm going to make the guy earn me. He's going to have to court me. He's going to have to get to know me. He's going to have to we're going to have to get engaged first, and he's going to have to wait until we can have a wedding and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll get married. And the thing is too, I'm not for long engagements and stuff, but if a man is able to control himself for the months leading up to marriage, when you guys are close and when you're around each other and all those things, then he can probably control himself after you get married. So that's another reason too, I think it's good, to, date for a little while and be engaged for a little while. Make that guy prove that he can control himself. And people aren't doing that kind of thing today. So, don't let the guy talk you into marrying him a week after you meet him. Then he doesn't have to prove himself. Make him prove himself. You ladies are making it way too easy for guys.
Definitely.
And people are always like, how these guys slip around with all these women? It's like, who are all these women that have so little respect for themselves that they will do that? And then how are these women that were that way before they got married, why are they expecting all this respect now that they are married?
Look at all the MGTOW guys that we hear complaining about all the loose women while they're sleeping around with all the loose women. They want a virgin, yet they think they can sleep around with, anyone that they want. Right.
Well, unfortunately, feminism has not helped women see themselves, as valuable, that virtue is being important. It's not. It's basically just turn them all into sleazy chicks. And these MGTOW guys, they don't have any respect for them. No. And why would they? Why would you respect a woman that's just going to sleep around like that? Again, I do believe women that have messed up and have been immoral and all that stuff, they can change and they can, become godly and all that stuff. But it's going to take a miracle of God. It's going to take...
That's the same with guys.
It's going to take a real work of the Lord in your life. And it's going to take time for you to be able to prove that. And you're not just going to get your respect just like that. You're not going to be able to just go and just get saved or just, repent of being a hussy, and then all of a sudden, now, I want respect. Now I demand, respect, but it's like, are you going to be able to behave yourself? Just because you got saved doesn't mean you're never going to mess up again.
Same goes with guys.
Yeah.
But let's talk about addictions. This is very prevalent in a lot of marriages, specifically the addiction of pornography. How is pornography changing marriages and basically warping men's minds, warping husbands' minds?
Yeah, well, that's what's doing it. It's warping their mind. A man who's watching pornography does not respect women.
No.
So, I mean, good night. The stuff that guy's watching, that's somebody's daughter, it's somebody's sister, it might even be somebody's wife. I don't know. But that type of thing is what's giving men that very negative outlook towards women.
Yeah.
And, you almost don't even want to talk about this stuff, because whenever you hear people talking about the lack of respect for women, it's typically feminist. But feminists, again, what the left wing of the world does, what the liberals do, they're good at identifying real problems, but then what they do, they'll get everyone looking at the problem, but they always misdiagnose, what caused it. And their solution is always worse. They never have good solutions. So, the solution, for these things is not to encourage women to be hussies, but to encourage them to be virtuous. It's not to encourage women to wear less clothing. It's to encourage them to be modest and to realize that, their body is not to be put on display for the whole world. These are the things that, that their body is for one man. That's the things we need to be teaching. The world frowns on all that. They scoff at all that. But look, they're the ones that are causing the lack of respect for women today. And so understand, ladies, if you're interested in a guy and you find out he's got a problem with pornography, I mean, I recommend dumping him.
I do.
And you know what, guys, just understand, you think that you're going to be, once you get a wife, you won't need it anymore. No, you're still going to, it's not going to change. And you just need to understand, when you let things like that warp your mind, okay, it's changing you in more ways than you realize. And you literally you're damaging yourself in a way that anyone with any spirituality, anyone with any discernment, they're going to see flaws in you. They're going to see problems in you that's going to turn them away from you. You aren't going to get as good of a woman. You're not going to get a woman that deserves respect.
Okay, what if
you're doing that?
What if they get married? They're both pure, because we're seeing this more and more even in Baptist homes.
Right.
I mean, how many men are addicted to pornography? 1 in 3 or something? 1 in 4? It's high statistics. It's a high number. And we're seeing pastors becoming addicted. We're seeing youth pastors. We're seeing youth leaders. We're seeing, good men in the church becoming addicted to this stuff. What if they're pure when they get married? They get out on their own. They no longer have their mom or dad or the college breathing down their neck with covenant eyes, and they get a taste of it. How does that? I mean, they got a good woman.
Right.
They're both pure. How does that start warping their mind?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things tonight, and people, especially in the IFB world, are especially good at taking one truth and running with it and leaving behind a whole bunch of other truths. So we can talk about the importance of going to the marriage altar pure. Yeah. And so,
physically pure.
Yeah, physically pure. And some people make a really big deal about that, and rightfully so. It's a big deal. So people will think, as long as I'm physically pure, I'm fine.
Yes.
And that, and then they get to the marriage altar physically pure. But the thing is, that's great. You did one of many things that you need to do. But you know what? You also need to get there mentally pure.
Yeah.
And if you've been warping your brain with pornography, and not even just stuff pornography, even just stuff that's considered regular television today.
Sure.
you're letting those things warp your mind.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, then these are shows that are socially acceptable, but they're basically, even a lot of people in the world are saying it's pornography.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're watching that kind of stuff, and so great, you got to the marriage altar physically pure, but your brain's already messed up.
Mm-hmm.
So your marriage is still going to stink. You're still going to have all kinds of problems because you haven't done that either. Okay, but at the same time too, all right, physically pure, mentally pure. Okay, that's great. If you can do those two things, you're going to do a lot better than a lot of other people. But now you also need to be somebody who is very disciplined and has character too. And one thing that we see in a lot of Christian homes, they hear the preachers, keep your kids pure, keep them innocent, and protect them from all these things. And the kids are so protected, and they're good kids. I mean, they're good teenagers. They're not tempted with all these things. But then you send them out of the house and you turn them loose in a world with smartphones and smart TVs and the internet and all these things. And these kids, they have no idea how to handle temptation. They never and this happens a lot in Christian homes. And this is always getting people scratching their heads like, man, our kids weren't allowed to do anything. We sheltered them. We protected them from so many things. And, then they went and they left the house and they got in all this trouble. And sometimes those kids are the worst. Because have you ever seen those kids too, whose parents never let them have any sugar? When all of a sudden they get a chance to get sugar, they just go crazy with it.
Yeah. And
some of the most innocent kids, the most sheltered kids, when all of a sudden, you think, I did a good job. They're 18, 20, 21. I'm ready to send them off in the world. And they've never been around sugar before, in a world where there's sugar everywhere. And they are going to go crazy. They're going to go nuts. And they do. They get on the internet, and all of a sudden they start seeing things. And they've never said no to temptation before.
Right.
And then sometimes they are the quickest to go into things like pornography, kids that grew up sheltered. So just understand, and then the world thinks, you got some of the trendies out there that grew up that way, and then all of a sudden they got themselves in all kinds of trouble. Well, it was because my parents were too strict. It's because we had too many rules. So I'm going to let my kids do all kinds of stuff. I'm going to let my girls dress like hussies. I'm going to let my boys do this. I'm going to let my girls do that. No, your parents' rules weren't bad, but they failed to take the time to instill some character in you. And so just understand,
it's more about just sheltering, which I've often said on the show. It's about having your children's heart and teaching them things like self-control,
right,
and discipline.
Yeah. And I preached a message about a while back about sheltered or shaping. And you can't just shelter your kids and expect them to turn out good. You have to shape them. You have to train them. You got to prepare them for stuff. So, if you've got a kid who's just constantly sneaking food and stuff, that's a kid who can't control their flesh. You better deal with that, because one of these days they're going to start sneaking more dangerous things.
Yeah.
And when it's not a good thing when you've got this just lazy, fat gamer that won't do anything. Listen, I don't care how innocent you think he is. That kid's got some character problems. You better deal with that. You better shape that kid up. You better get involved in some sports. And and if you're you have a hard time being mean, or you're a single mom or something, get him in a sport with a coach that's going to scream in his face and call him a girl.
That's
and
not
make
politically
him, and make him,
correct.
yeah, and make him run till he throws up, and do all that stuff. And don't go to the public school, because they're not allowed to do any of that stuff. Send them somewhere, get them involved with somebody that will do those things, because boys need that stuff. Boys need to learn how to be tough and to deal with things, how to get up early, and how to go to bed when they're supposed to, not stay up late watching TV, playing video games. So so a lot of people are going into marriage physically pure, maybe even mentally pure, but they also have no self-control, no discipline, and then now you're turning them loose in a world that is dangerous and full of temptation, and they're going to, it's not going to turn out good. So you got to do everything. There's a lot of stuff you have to do.
Yeah. So when a man starts watching pornography, brings that into his marriage, maybe tries to get his wife to participate with him, how is that going to negatively affect even their physical relationship and maybe even more?
Well, again, for one, it's just wrong. You know, it's just a sin. Sin never produces anything good. It never has, and it never will. You know, and it's one of those things where it's like a drug. You know, it really is like a drug, and you're going to keep needing more and more, and people need to learn how to function without those things. And the best thing is just to never ever touch it, never ever experiment with it. And you know, I'm just going to admit it, I'm not a good authority when it comes to getting over addictions. There are good ones. I would really recommend people watch some of my videos, streams I did. There was one I did a few on pornography, but there was one I did with an evangelist, Benjamin Burks, and an assistant pastor.
That was really good.
Josue Cabnal, I believe was his name.
Nice memory.
And there was some really good stuff. Those guys had some really good stuff. They been involved in addictions ministries and stuff. And, you know, I think addictions ministries are very important. I think they're going to become more and more necessary as this world gets more and more worse. And, you know, we need more people to get victory over addictions so they can get involved in churches and help other people. And my philosophy, you know, the way I was raised, my dad raised, you know, to just, you know, never get involved with these things and you never have to worry about it. You know, my dad always said, you can't become an alcoholic if you don't take the first drink. You can't become a drug addict if you never, you know, smoke the first joint or whatever. And so that's kind of been how it is with me. I don't want the temptation. I don't want to have to deal with the addiction. So I've just kept those doors closed in my life, and it's made my life a lot easier. And, you know, and I feel like I'm able to help people who've been raised like me, you know, who get curious about those things and stuff. But at the same time too, we do need people in churches that know how to help people that are addicted. And
that would be with anything, you know, pornography.
Right. But
drugs.
that's not my area of expertise. You know, I'm just going to yell at you and tell you to just get over it, deal with it, you know, and, you know, when maybe you need a hug or something, but it's, you know, the Benjamin Burks, I really enjoyed that conversation with him.
That's one of your least watched videos too.
I know.
And I wish it had more. I don't
know.
People
did not pay that much attention. That was one of the best ones I've ever done.
I know, but
and it wasn't because of me.
I think people are like, they don't want help in that area.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want to give it up.
Maybe
they think it's fine. You know, everyone does this, you know.
I mean, it seems like a lot of people are struggling with that stuff. So I thought a lot of people don't want. And listen, nobody knows if you're watching it. You know, it's not like I'm getting a notification, so-and-so watch this, all right? You know, I'm not going to know that you're struggling with this stuff, but people need to watch that. And even if you're not struggling with it, you know, you need to watch that because, you know, it'll deter you from ever getting involved with it. You know, you don't need the temptation.
Right. Chanella said the world standard of beauty can negatively affect the marriage because all of a sudden the wife will no longer look attractive because she doesn't look like what the women on TV look like. And we've often seen that. Oftentimes when a man is involved in that, he does put a lot of pressure on his wife to be a size 3, to
and
get surgeries, to be all made up, you know.
I've known a lot of situations too where you've got guys who are not good looking, they are not in shape, and yet they have all these expectations for their wives.
Yeah.
Who's been having kids. And I'm just like, when I see guys that are like that, I just automatically think you're into pornography.
Yeah, I do too.
It's clear you have no control over your flesh.
Yeah.
And yet you have all this expectation for your wife. Why do you expect her to look that way, especially when you look the way you do? I'll tell you why. It's because you live in fantasy world. And let me just say this too. You know, obviously, you know, I grew up around, you know, I love Superman and the Incredible Hulk and all that kind of stuff too. But understand the whole fantasy genre of movies and things, a lot of that stuff is kind of a stepping stone to the people who get obsessed with fantasy. You know, they typically get into that stuff too. It's just, it really is kind of a stepping stone. So you really got to be careful with that. And a lot of these guys who are struggling with pornography, these are the guys that still wear Superman pajamas and, you know, just are getting all the comic books. And these guys live in a fantasy world. And I mean, you've got guys out of shape, ugly, and they're like expecting to, you know, get these pretty girls to want to marry him and stuff. And it's like, you know, what in the world? You know, what do you think? It's not going to happen. And so again, if you're watching that stuff, then you're going to have a negative opinion about women and a low respect for them, and that will show in your behavior towards them, and they will pick up on that. You also are going to have an expectation of them that most women are not going to be able
especially
to live up to.
If you marry pure.
Right, which is going to make you respect them even less.
Yeah.
So again, just guys who are single guys that get involved in pornography, just, you know what, every time you watch that stuff, just think, this is probably assuring me that I'm going to stay this way forever. Just I'm just telling you that right now. Or it's guaranteeing you're just not going to get one of the good ones.
Yeah.
So, you know, listen, there is a price to pay when you watch pornography. I don't even care if it's free. I don't care if no money came out of your wallet. You are going to pay a price that it's not worth it. So.
Yep, definitely. Let's move on to bad teaching. How does bad teaching negatively affect a loving marriage? Let's deal specifically with my crowd that's watching bad teaching in the church.
Yeah. A lot of times it's not even bad teaching. It's
a bad teacher.
or it's not even a bad teacher too. Again, sometimes it's people taking one thing and running with it.
That's true. Yeah.
Something I find myself explaining to other preachers a lot too, because people, I was just recently having a conversation. I just in the last week I've had a conversation with two different pastors who were like, all right, I'm seeing people saying this crazy stuff, and they're kind of from your crowd, and so it's like,
what is our crowd?
Well, they think they're from my crowd. So I regularly get embarrassed by people that I'm friends with on Facebook and stuff. That's why I unfriend a lot of people. But anyway, they're like, and I guess too, it's specifically been people who have a set of beliefs that people would associate with me in certain areas.
Oh.
So, they'll be like,
just because we have the same doctrine doesn't mean they're
what's
our
going
crowd.
on? And I said, there's what pastors teach, and then there's what their followers take from it and run with.
Yeah.
And a lot of times,
it is true.
So the thing is, it's really easy for us, and I think Baptists across the board, we've all done this. But when you live in a world where you just have stuff like feminism that's just repulsive, it's real easy and it's fun. We love it. Our congregations love it when we just get up there and you just do a good old fashioned Rosie O'Donnell blast or something like that.
She's not even a thing anymore.
Yeah, or whoever. Okay,
yeah.
Everybody enjoys that kind of thing, and a lot of times we do. We let our rhetoric goes beyond how we actually live. So we're bashing the feminists. It's like, if Hillary's my wife, she'd be making me a sandwich. She'd be doing this. She'd be doing that. And the thing is, we say all these things many times, again, just kind of making fun, not even being serious, almost trying to be offensive to the other side. But you know what? We got to be careful, because there's always an idiot in the congregation or online that's like, that's how I'm supposed to do things.
Wait, you're not calling your congregation idiot, right? Just
no,
to clarify.
Not my congregation.
Thank you.
But we could potentially have one. We've had some before where it's like they've done just fortunately people like that don't stay around here.
No, they don't.
We have ways of getting rid of them, and fortunately it's not too hard. But yeah, so you got to be you got to be careful. with the rhetoric that you use sometimes, because people they take it to an extreme. And so the thing is, there are things that are biblical that we teach that can be very appealing to guys who have serious issues and serious problems. So for example, if a guy has a wife that maybe is a little bit of a nag, if a guy is henpecked or something like that, and he hears preaching against, loud and stubborn women and all that kind of stuff, he's going to gravitate towards that, and he's going to be like, because he's already bitter at his wife. And so he hears all that rhetoric and he hears all that extreme stuff. And then all of a sudden he's just like, and then he does, man, he just goes nuts with it. And then the thing is, that same guy, he will not hear the message about, cherishing the wife, giving honor unto her as under the weaker vessel.
Absolutely
not. He will only hear the head of the home part. And then he'll hear a preacher too get up and just start, monologuing about how it's done in his home. Okay, well, great. That's how you do things in your home. But at the same time, not everybody maybe needs to do that. My wife, my home, I handle the finances. My wife, she's not even allowed to look at the checkbook. It's none of her business what I'm doing with the money. I'll give her $50 to buy groceries for a family of 12, and you know what? She needs to figure out how to do it. And, and if she says anything, she's just a nag. If she's got a problem with me taking money that she's wanting to use for groceries, but I want to use it to buy a video game, you know what? I'm the head of the household. She needs to submit. And you know what? I'm going to buy my video game. And
unfortunately, this is not much of an exaggeration.
And these are not exaggerations. These are like real stories and things that have happened in marriages. And then they treat their wife like garbage. They are a derelict, when it comes to their duties as a husband and as a father. But you know what? They do that one thing. They're the boss. Yeah. Yeah, I'm the boss. I wear the pants in my family. Okay, great. I'm glad you wear the pants in your family. I'm glad your wife wears a skirt in the family. I'm glad you're the head of the household. But you know what? If you don't love, honor, and cherish your wife and give honor to her as under the weaker vessel, you're a pile of garbage.
Yeah.
You are a worthless human being who, you shouldn't even be allowed to sit amongst a congregation of believers. You should be thrown out of a church on your backside.
Isn't there a verse somewhere about that?
Yeah, you're worse than you're worse than an infidel. You're worse than an infidel if you act that way, if you behave that way. You've got guys too who, their wife, they're bearing all these children, which takes a toll on them physically. And then, and I've heard some horrible stories too about expectations that men have had on their wives. And it's like, listen, women need to heal. Women, they get tired. They got a nurse. They got to do all these things. And then you are forcing yourself on her because somebody told you that it's impossible to rape your wife in marriage and stuff like that. And it's like, no, you are you can call it whatever you want. I don't care. But you know what? Fine. You don't have to call it rape if you don't want to. You're abusive. You're a pile of garbage. You ought to be taken out and horsewhipped. You should be put in the stocks, in central part of town and let people come and throw eggs in your face and stuff like that. And, these are real things that we hear people happening. And a lot of these same clowns, you'll see them on Facebook and on social media. They're sharing every sermon about husband being in charge, every sermon ripping on women. They're leaving comments. They're all over that stuff. And in the meantime, these guys are some of the most worthless pieces of human debris on the planet. And then they act like they're advancing Bible doctrine and Baptist doctrine. And if you have a problem with this, if you have a problem with me as the head of the home and making my wife buy me a video game instead of groceries, then you just don't like the Bible. And that's just not even true. No, we take all of the Bible, not just the parts that we like, while we just throw out all these other parts that we don't like. So, that's what a lot of people are dealing with. And so, yeah, a lot of times that guy who's binge watching sermons against women, and I'm for preaching at the women sometimes. They need it. But if you're that guy that's just got to binge watch those sermons all the time, it's probably because you're bitter about your own marriage because it's not very good, and you're blaming your wife. See, you're not even the leader of your home because you think all the problems in your marriage and all the problems in your home are because of your wife. Well, okay, fine. Let's just give that to you. You know what that means? That means she's the head of your house. And so just because you yell loud and just because you post things and share stuff on Facebook doesn't all of a sudden make you Mr. Macho Man and head of the house.
Just because you say it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, just because you've claimed this, just because you leave extreme comments on social media and you're rebuking every other woman on social media and, expecting them to not usurp your authority even though they're not married to you. Okay, just you're in this situation because you have no control. So it's not even that they are these like controlling people. No, they've lost control. They have lost control. That's why they are the way they are. And so they gravitate towards extreme stuff. And I am for, I don't think there's anything wrong with, being funny and saying some of the stuff, I like a good feminist bash, but you do have to be careful sometimes because of just idiots.
Yeah.
That are they're gonna take it the wrong way. And what we've seen today too is you have a lot of people in the IFB world and the Christian world who have they've gotten so intimidated by the internet crowd. Because when you preach, you can preach the most biblical sermon about the husband and wife. You could say it nice and everything, and they're going to get triggered.
Yeah.
And so a lot of preachers are like backing down, and they're very careful with the rhetoric. And sometimes too, they're almost too soft. And then you have other preachers like, oh, this is stupid. I don't care. And then and they almost like the controversy and stuff. And again, I like hitting back this. That's why people like Donald Trump. He said extreme things. He said crazy stuff. That's why people like Alex Jones. They like watching him freak out and just go nuts and start yelling and screaming and pounding his chest. That's entertaining to watch. And a lot of people too, they kind of like that with preaching. I like that kind of preaching. I used to listen to every Phil Kidd sermon I can get my hand on.
I never liked him, and you liked him.
Just to watch him, lose it and start saying homophobic slurs and I loved it. Now, when I would listen to Phil Kidd, I had a ringtone for the longest time too.
What is it with you and doing ringtones with different preachers?
I like doing that. I had a ringtone for the longest time with Phil Kidd where here's what he's saying there. He's talking about these girls who won't listen to their dads, and he's like when you go over to her house, watch and see if she gets her fat lazy carcass off the couch to help her mom. She just lays back like a turkey having a seizure or a beached whale on the couch. Don't have her. And then the part I had on the ringtone, she's a slob, she's fat, she'll blow up like a beached whale, she'll never keep your house clean, your kids will always be dirty. And I love that clip. But you know what?
I was not enthused.
And when he even said that clip too, you could hear a little chuckle in his voice. He was being extreme on purpose. Okay. And listen, I'm not a Phil Kidd fan, but at the same time,
you used to be.
I will defend what he said. Yeah, I used to be. I will defend what he said in that clip because I took it in the spirit of I'm preaching. I think he might have been preaching to teenagers.
I don't know.
And
yeah, he was.
He's trying to say things that will be memorable. And basically, he said at the end, if she yells at her dad, she'll yell at you. That's true. If a girl, she has no respect for her dad, she will not submit to his authority, she's going to be the same way with you. That was what he was teaching. But the thing is, all those lines before, they were fantastic. They were memorable. I remember that whole thing. And so the thing is, though, I never thought I should go telling women they look like a beached whale on a couch. They look like a turkey having a seizure. I took it the way you were supposed to. But there was probably somebody out there there might have been a guy out there that after he listened to that, and his wife was like laying on the couch, he might have started screaming at her, "You're a slob, you're fat,
I'm sure
you're
he
blowing
did.
up like a beach whale. You
There's
never keep
men
your
out
house
there
clean.
like that.
Our kids are always dirty." Somebody might have done that. I don't know. But and some of you out there on social media land, you're so dumb, you're so pathetic. That's exactly what you would do after hearing a sermon like that.
Yeah. Robots.
Yeah.
But moving on. We got to move on. When I was smiling during one of your monologues, it was a serious thing. It was because of what David Fisher said. So it was not at what you were saying. So some of the comments are kind of funny. And I totally agree, David, with your second comment especially.
He always drops my name when you're saying offensive teaching things. I don't say the crazy stuff, I don't think.
I think he was being funny. Someone said, please talk about ways to have a great marriage. And we are going to talk about ways that husbands can show love to their wives for sure. Let's talk a little bit about a turkey having a seizure. I hated that ringtone, Janello. He loves to get ringtones I hate. And I think just to irritate me.
She would get embarrassed all the time because we'd be in public.
Yes, that's embarrassing. And then your Bill Reeves, we're not changing. Oh my word. It scared me every time it went off.
I got rid of that one because I kept giving me heart attacks. It was so loud.
Julie, you have an excuse because you're almost full-term pregnant.
Yeah, and you know what? Some robot idiot, while his wife was 9 months pregnant too, laying on the couch, probably, heard Phil Kissinger like, yeah, that's my wife right there. It's just like, when they're 9 months pregnant.
Yes. All of us look that way.
they're definitely going to feel that way, and they might look that way sometimes. And you know what? They're giving you a child, so
yeah.
Let them deal with that.
I wanted to quickly go on to this before we go into ways that husbands can show love to their wives. There's also a lot of, I feel, bad preaching, especially in maybe churches that do believe in biblical roles for men and women. Did you know you're married to a loud and stubborn woman?
Mm.
Yeah. So can you explain why someone would call someone a loud and stubborn woman who's not? Maybe a woman who is just smart, a woman who is educated, maybe a woman who has other hobbies besides taking care of the kids. And
a lot of the reasons people are the way they are with women, or even the way that they feel about certain things with women, it's because they're very insecure themselves. And so a lot of guys who are insecure because maybe they're dumb, they're intimidated by a smart woman because they don't want to be outdone. They're if they're a shy or timid or something like that, and their wife is bold and just not afraid of things, they're intimidated by that kind of thing. So a lot of women, or a lot of men who are just insecure, they put expectations on women that are not necessary, and they aren't even biblical. I mean, there's nothing in the Bible that says a woman has to be dumb. It's okay if women learn things. It's okay if they know how to do something. If you look at the woman in Proverbs 31, she seemed like she was pretty smart. She knew how to do business. She seemed like she worked hard too. It's okay if they're strong. I'm not saying, you got people promoting the bodybuilding with women and stuff like that. Obviously that's foolish and extreme. But, there's nothing wrong with your daughters having some confidence. And here's the thing too. The smarter your girls are, the more confident they are, the stronger they are, the more likely they will expect to get a guy who's not an idiot, who's confident, who's, they're going to expect to get a good guy. So I think it's good to let, women have confidence. But again, that's one of those things too. You hear what the feminists are saying all the time. And they do. You go swinging the pendulum the other way.
Right.
And that's ridiculous. And so, some guys feel like they need to have their wives handcuffed to the stove at home, because they're afraid she's going to cheat on them, because they're insecure. I don't know what their fears are. But, the Proverbs 31 woman wasn't chained up in her house. She was out and about doing things, getting stuff done, making things happen. And so, obviously too, when it comes to, the career, you have the career woman being promoted. And, that's what's so bad about that is it's getting priorities wrong. Obviously, being a wife and mother is better. The world's telling you, that's like a lesser thing.
Right.
And so you can be married and have kids. Just send them all to daycare, send them all to public school. That's ridiculous. And I think it's sad when women, they sacrifice the good of their children, for a career. And, and they let their marriage get ruined for that. It's terrible when women go and they're working a job where they're around men all the time and, have some of the temptations and things, or even just deal with junk that ladies shouldn't have to deal with. Ladies shouldn't have to deal with, working around a bunch of filthy, cussing animals, all the time. I don't want my wife dealing with that. I don't want my daughter dealing with that. So a lot of times you have preachers who maybe he's dealing with a marriage in the church where the wife's doing that. She's working a factory job while her kids are in daycare or something. And so he just gets up and declares women shouldn't have jobs, But the thing is, it's like, well, okay, there's some things that they would be able to do. There's some things that that a woman might be able to do without shirking any of her responsibilities. What if she doesn't have any kids? What if it's while her husband's working? What if what if her kids are grown up? There's a lot of things you have to factor in there, but a lot of times preachers, in trying to deal with one situation, they just get up and they make extra biblical rules that they think apply to everyone, and then you have the zombies that just follow that, and it doesn't work. And then, too, you got to take this into consideration too. Guys, when you got married, okay, I'm not saying when people get saved, they need to change. When people get right with God or even become a fundamental Baptist, there's going to be changes that need to take place. But men also need to have enough wisdom. They need to have enough strength and enough character and enough leadership ability to help lead their wives and their families into becoming IFB. I preached a message a long time ago from Genesis where Jacob, he talked about how he was going to lead on softly, right, because they were trying to travel, and he's got wives, he's got kids, he's got animals. And while he would have been capable of getting to where he wanted to go fast and easy, his family wouldn't be able to handle that. That kind of traveling, those kind of trips, it was a lot harder on women and children than it was him. And so because he was the leader and because he was responsible for them, he took into consideration what it was going to do to them. And we're seeing a lot of guys, because they're the leader, it's like, well, I can handle it. It's like, I know you're 9 months pregnant, you don't feel like, going and doing this or doing it. I feel fine. Well, hey, you're the one that got her pregnant. You're the one that had, brought all these kids into the world. You need to take into consideration how this is going to affect them. And so when you got married, if you didn't have dress standards, if you weren't going to church regular, if your wife had a job, maybe she had a career when you married her, and then all of a sudden you go and you hear one sermon, that's it, put in your 2 weeks notice. Don't even do that, just quit. You know what, she's probably going to get bitter at you.
Yeah.
Leading her from a more feminist attitude to a fundamental Baptist attitude, that's not always an easy trip for people. It's a good trip. It's worth it. I believe she'll be better off, but does she have faith yet? How long has she even been saved? Is she even saved yet? And so a lot of guys who started out terrible are literally trying to change everything overnight. Yeah. And it's mainly when it comes to stuff that affects their wife.
Should he ever force her to do those IFB-ish things?
I mean, hey, you can do whatever you want, right? You're the boss, but this is also America. She can also leave your backside.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Hardcore on everything, that preacher that, you were following there too, that didn't give you any good examples on how to lead, is also going to be hardcore against divorce and remarriage. And so I hope you're going to be fine being single for the rest of your life. And it's funny the things that we pick to blindly follow. You'll blindly follow bad advice when it comes to things that only hurt the wife, but when it comes to things that are going to affect you, then all of a sudden you're the exception. I find that interesting. And, you are the husband, you are the leader. We should always listen to other preachers. We should always take advice. But at the end of the day, you know them, you know your family, and you need to, you need to lead gently in those areas. And if you don't, you're going to burn them out. And so, you're teenagers. If you became IFB and your kids are already teenagers, I mean, you might have a battle on your hand when you just all of a sudden, you guys are out of the public school, you're being homeschooled, and, girls, you're dressing like girls, guys, you're dressing like guys, and they're like, and here's the other thing too. Great. You finally got it right this time, you're IFB, but you know what, last year you were Mormon. The year before that, you were charismatic. It's like you've never done anything consistently for any length of time, and now all of a sudden, because you're IFB, everybody's should just fall in line. It's probably not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can do whatever you want, but this is America, so can she, and she probably will.
Do you think it's wrong or not biblical for a woman to have a strong personality?
There's nothing wrong with having a strong personality. Now, it stinks if you're a weak guy and with a weak personality, then, or if you're just a weak guy who has to put on the persona of a strong personality, then you might have a problem with that. But please address about men leading families instead of being passive. I don't get the question.
Men being passive is kind of something that is being taught in today's world, and feminism has directly influenced that. Men are afraid to lead, I think.
Well, a lot of men who are passive too, it's because they've been whooped.
Yeah.
They got tired of fighting, and then it's like, fine, whatever, It could be just the personality with some people, and here's the other thing too, it's okay. The husband is still the head of the home, even if he gives his wife, authority in certain areas. Not like authority over him, but like puts her over something. Okay, a man can choose to let his wife handle the budget if he wants. That might not be something, since a lot of times the women are the ones doing a lot of the spending. Sometimes they're better organized. Better with numbers, they might be better at it. So,
I did it for years.
Yeah,
but
she used to do it because she was buying all the groceries and stuff, and it just worked better. Later we switched it back to me just because,
I was getting stressed out.
She was getting too stressed out by it, so she couldn't handle it. So I took
He
it.
took it.
Yeah.
And
So
he's had it ever
I
since,
took it
and
back,
I'm happy.
And so in reality, I don't really care
No.
about that. But we've always been poor, so handling the money can be kind of stressful.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, all right, I've got to take this.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I don't mind passing that thing on to her, and so, a lot of times too, I mentioned the children, they just leave everything to the wife, if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And so, a lot of you ladies, the reason your husbands probably are so passive is because you beat him down. And it stinks that he was weak and he let you do that. But,
it is that way in some.
if you would like him to take charge,
Could
maybe
you ask
quit
him?
fighting him every step of the way.
Yeah.
Maybe, let him take charge, and then be a helpmeet.
Yeah.
Be supportive, be submissive, shut up, and
Don't nitpick every decision he makes.
Yeah, exactly. Don't nitpick everything. Don't question everything. Again, some women, they can make such massive battles out of the smallest things that the guy's just like, I don't want to fight this battle.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely not always. I mean, if the wife is in a position where she wants him to lead, I mean, don't you think it would be okay for her to ask him of that and then just step back and let him do his thing?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're, especially as long as you're going to let him, and some guys too, they might have grown up in a home with a passive father who didn't do anything and the mom ran the show, and that's just how they think it's supposed to work, and when that happens, that guy, he's one that kind of needs to hear some of that preaching, with Phil Kidd-esque type things and stuff to maybe kick him in gear, so some guys, they And a lot of times too, preachers they're trying to get, Mr. Passive, whose wife can beat him up. They're trying to toughen that guy up. That's who they're thinking of. But then a lot of times, you've got the guy who's already tough, who's already a leader, who maybe is more prone to being abusive.
Yeah.
And then so sometimes too, you might preach another message trying to calm him down, but then he doesn't even hear what you say, and then Mr. Passive hears it. So again, so that's why, as a pastor too, you just got to be very careful. Just preach the Bible, and be careful just trying to preach at an individual, because you might end up, you're saying everything towards that one guy, but it's like the wrong guy's going to hear it. And that I think that kind of thing happens a lot. So
I like what Austin said to Jan's question, especially how can a more directive woman help a less assertive husband grow in confidence? We've never had that problem in our marriage. So, and then Austin said, express confidence in your husband and don't be directive over him. Let him lead. And I think just some of the biggest issue is I've seen women who they have a problem with everything their husband does. They have a problem with, I don't know, just how he drives. And they have a problem with if he gets sent to the grocery store, what brand of toilet paper he picks out. And they just nitpick everything. And that really, finally, the husband just throws up his hands. He's like, fine, I'm done. Everything's yours. You can do everything.
Yeah, they've just chipped away at the guy's soul so much. He's just an empty shell anymore.
Yeah.
And then they do it. Then they have a problem with it. I was like, you created that.
Yeah. That does happen quite a bit.
So yeah.
I think most men would like being the leader. Don't you? Especially in our circles.
I think most men naturally want to lead, but they also don't want to just fight their wife all the time too. They'd like to lead. I even think most women want to be led by their husband, but a lot of times too, their husband's pathetic and they don't trust him, and so that's the thing about marriage. It's two people, and both of you need to be getting things right for things to actually work. It can't just be one all the time. And, but at the end of the day, as the husband, you are the leader. The buck stops with you. You need to get your act, you need to get your act together, and don't wait for your wife to get straightened out. No, you need to do your part first. And I think eventually your wife will come around.
Chanello and Ashley, both good advice. But KJV Disciples, Beth is asking specifically for discipline is the issue, raising kids. I found too, has she made comments about how the husband is harsh with the kids? You're too harsh. Just I'll do it as far as disciplining.
Obviously men need to be involved in discipline with the kids, but at the same time too,
the woman is going to have the majority.
Yeah, the woman's around the kids all the time, all day. And she can't not do any discipline the whole day.
Right. And
then just expect the husband, when he shows up and all of a sudden the kids are being good, to just fix everything. So, so the thing is, I do think women are going to be a major part of the discipline.
Yeah.
And I think the father, he needs to be a very supportive role when it comes to that. So it's like, if mom's been spanking the kids during the day, they don't need to get sympathy from dad when he gets home. They might need to get another spanking. They need to know, kids need to know, if I get in trouble with mom during the day, I'm going to be in trouble with dad when he gets home too. So, men, you can't do nothing. But ladies too, you can't also expect him to do it all.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Once again, it's all about balance.
Yeah, so you have to deal with things during the day. You are with them a majority of the time. You are the primary caregiver.
Yeah.
That's why you're going to get everything in the divorce settlement, because you're the primary caregiver, and so you need to actually do that, and that part of that is disciplining. And then the kids need to know dad's got mom's back, and we don't want to get it from dad too.
Yeah.
And mom needs to be able to have dad to threaten the kids with too. So you can't do nothing. Yeah, but ladies, you can't expect the husband to do everything.
Yep. Okay, so trying to wrap it up. What are some ways just that a husband can be loving towards his wife and lead in that? Obviously, I go over the stuff for women all the time.
Right.
So you're specifically talking to the men.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest thing is just to be aware of what's going on.
You know, and I want to say something too. I mean, we got married young.
Mm-hmm.
You've grown a lot in this area.
Mm.
You've grown a lot because, you know, and obviously you're supposed to grow. I'm glad you're better now than you were almost 22 years ago.
Mm.
And I think part of that just comes from learning about each other, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then a lot of times too, you know, where I learn from a lot of my mistakes is by watching other people make the same mistakes I do. I see other people doing a really bad. That's how I fix a lot of my preaching. I see other people do it wrong,
Yeah.
and it's like, and then I'm like, oh wait a minute, I do that sometimes. You
Okay,
know, so,
what are some mistakes then that you learned from watching other people? No, not so much watching other people, but what are some areas you've changed? I could tell you, but what are some areas you've changed?
Not being aware of what the wife deals with, you know, and so, yeah, again, you see these husbands who just they put all the expectation on the woman, and they feel like they can because they're the leader. And no, you know, leading is not about having people under your thumb to do your bidding. You know, leading is about you helping people do what needs to be done. You know, when Moses is leading the children of Israel, he's not leading them so he can have this multitude serving him. No, he's leading them because he's trying to get a nation into the promised land. He's trying to get them somewhere good. So a lot of men, that's what they think leading is. They think leading is, I've got a wife that'll do what I tell her to do. No, leading is you making that woman happy. You leading your children is making those children happy and helping them to become good, productive adults that will be able to go on and live a happy life themselves. That's what leading is. So, yeah, a lot of guys, that's where they got it wrong. They think leading, a lot of pastors are that way too. They think leading the church means everybody does what I says, everybody props me up. No, you leading your people means you are helping them become more Christ-like. You're bringing them you're bringing them to Jesus. You're helping make them more like Jesus. You know, you're helping them to become more godly and to become more Christ-like. In fact, I think if you're doing a really good job as a pastor, that you're going to get your people where they need you less and less.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think everybody always needs a pastor to a certain extent, but you you shouldn't need your pastor every day. You know, shouldn't be calling them up every day. You know what I do in this. You know, you're gonna help people get to where they know how to function in life and have a walk with God themselves. And I think some pastors, I've known a lot of pastors like these over the years. It's like they need their people dependent on them, and a lot of parents are that way too. They're not even raising their kids to, you know, go be independent. It's like they always want them needing them, and you know that's not good. And you know, so we just hit 11 years at our church. I have no desire to go anywhere, but my goal has always been to get our church to a point where I could leave and they would be fine. I don't want our church to have me. I don't want the church, the people in our church, that if, you know, I go, everything falls apart for them. No, I want everybody to be fine without me, because to me that's what leading really is. And then, but you know, like I said, obviously my will is to stay here and keep doing what I'm doing. But yeah, I think that's what real leadership is.
What are some practical ways to show your wife love? I mean, we talked a lot about, you know, not being involved in pornography, faithfulness, all that. Obviously,
right. Yeah, I mean,
infidelity is horrible.
So yeah, you know, the quality time stuff's good, and you know, being aware of what she's, you know, probably had to deal with during the day, taking care of a million kids and homeschooling and all that kind of stuff. And you know,
that's one thing you got a lot better about is
allowing her
started adding on more kids,
allowing her to have an outlet. Again, so some guys are so insecure and they're so extreme. They need their wife handcuffed to the kitchen stove. Okay. But the thing is, your wife, with all she does, it probably would be good if she had some kind of outlet, some kind of hobby, something that she enjoys doing, whatever it is. A lot of women like a lot of different things. Let her have some of that. Let her go do something outside the house and have a good time. And, I don't care about that one story you heard about the guy who let his wife go do something she went and cheated on him. Okay? It's like, obviously, if somebody's determined to cheat, they're going to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, for real.
That's all there is to it. But, let them have something. And some guys, they take away everything. And it's because they're insecure. And those same guys, too, a lot of times that don't let their wives have anything, they're doing all kinds of junk behind her back.
Yeah.
I hear stories too about guys who they can go away for the night and their wife doesn't even know where she's at or where they're at.
Yeah. But they're the leader of the home.
Yeah, I'm the head of the home. I don't need to tell her what in the. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
I know.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're an idiot. Man, I hope my daughter never marries a guy like you. You stink so bad. Listen, I don't care that you're the leader of the home too. You also made a vow.
Yeah.
To, love, honor, and cherish your wife and to keep her, be faithful unto her as long as you both shall live. And when you're just doing weird, unexplained things for long periods of time, if I'm not gonna let my wife see what I'm spending the money on, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Who tries to hide that kind of stuff from their wives? Guys who are doing things that their wives wouldn't want them doing.
Yep.
And so you can try to play your leadership card all you want. You are not a leader.
No.
Okay? You're not a leader. A dictator is not necessarily a leader. They're a bully.
Yeah.
Is what they are. And so there's a big difference between being a bully and actually being a leader. And a lot of guys, they don't know what that is. And I do. I despise people like that.
Yeah. I know it's different for some women, and maybe that's where the love language quiz would come in, helpful for you both to do. But I know for me, one thing that I've always felt loved for you is you didn't marry me and then try to change my personality. Mm-hmm. You fell in love with spunky Cassandra, and I feel like you like my spunk. I mean, you have to tell me to tone it down sometimes. But I have so many other men that aren't my husband online putting me down, telling me I'm a loud and stubborn woman.
Those are the insecure.
Yeah.
Those are insecure men. And a lot of times, too, the guys who always feel like they need to correct other people's wives, especially some of these online clowns and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're projecting. They're saying to your wife what they are afraid to say to their wife. That's what it is. And so it's like they're afraid to say these things to her, and so it's like, I'm just going to go bash this woman, and they will, and it's their way of getting at their wife. It's like, that woman, she's so fat and disgusting, blah blah blah, and it's like they're saying about them because they're afraid to say it to their wife. And so that's why they're so negative about other women all the time. Guys who are extremely negative about women typically aren't very fond of their wife.
Yeah, I found that to be true.
It's just the
way it is. People would say you're that way, though. I heard that on your interview with Eric. People were picking that apart.
And that was thinking, those weren't even my quotes.
No,
they
weren't.
I'm just saying, these guys were being funny. So it's like, I was just...
They did not appreciate you thought it was funny.
I was saying, because again, preachers do. Sometimes they take the rhetoric a little too far.
Yeah.
If
you weren't even the one who said that.
And I wasn't even, I wouldn't even say that. But at the same time, I got the context of it. I don't think Phil Kidd's a misogynist, and he says more extreme things about women than I do. But that's his way, and so I'm able to see through that. But a lot of times followers can't, and so we've all got to be careful with that. And the men in my church, while I don't believe they're idiots and I can get up and I can say funny stuff and they're not going to go home and slap their wives. Some of the people watching online might. I don't know who all those people are.
Right.
And so, I try to be careful with that. And if I do say stuff that's extreme too, I typically do it in a way where people know I'm being funny. Or maybe I'm trying, I'm being offensive. I'm being edgy.
It's like they think you're that way to me, but I'm going to tell you, I'm the opposite. I'm the least. I don't know how to. You would never say things like that to me. So I don't know.
Typically, if I'm like doing a good old fashioned rant about women in church, my wife's sitting in the crowd, just kind of like.
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
that's usually the face she's making, because what I'm saying is it's over the top. I'm being funny, and
I'm just like,
yeah, and she's just like, yeah, it's like, that's not how it is.
I notice most of the time you try not to even look at me, or you will at the end, because you know what face I'm making.
I don't need to look to know what
no,
face you're making.
You can feel what face I'm making. That's one thing. I might be able to keep my mouth shut, but my face always tells what I'm thinking. So,
yeah, she's learned how to shut her mouth. She's never learned how to shut her face.
It's my eyebrow. It's my eyebrow. I have the one eyebrow that goes up. Are you kidding me?
She's like, I don't know why these people. I didn't even say anything. It's like, just because words didn't come out of your mouth didn't mean they didn't fly off your face.
I have learned in the last 21 years to keep my mouth shut at times. And even my fingers on occasion.
But you haven't learned how to keep your face shut.
It's impossible. It's there. What am I supposed to do?
Maybe that's why Muslims have their wives.
Oh, my word.
Cover their whole face. Because maybe Muslim women are like that too. They keep their mouths shut, but they can't keep their face shut. I'm gonna start telling them.
They do show the eyes, though. It's my eyes that are the dead giveaway.
I'm gonna start telling you that when you start doing that, tell you to shut your face.
Shut my face. Sorry, babe. You're
shut
stuck.
your face, woman. That's what I tell my wife when she gets out of line and starts making those faces. Shut your face.
Now someone's gonna make a clip.
Look at the way this man treats his wife. And the thing is, I probably will actually say that, but it will also kind of be, sometimes we say extreme things, but kind of in fun, too.
No, Joyce, I'm supposed to be. What is the term? I can't think of the term. Oppressed. I'm oppressed. I'm such an oppressed woman because I'm living out biblical roles. Yeah. It's also not wrong to be a woman with an opinion, although lots of men think that. But once again, that goes back to the insecure thing.
So. And even if she doesn't open her mouth, she gives me her opinion with her face.
Mm-hmm. With my eyebrow. I can't help it. It just goes up automatically. Mm. It's not my fault. Yep, it's a one eyebrow way. It's a family thing. We all have that trait. I don't even know how I do it, but it happens. So, anyways, if you guys have any questions, we didn't even go over some of the stuff. I don't know. There's so much that you could even talk about with the subject. Mm-hmm. And the way that you feel loved is going to be different than the way I do. And I think as you grow together in your marriage, you figure those things out. I think I've figured out ways to make you feel loved that I didn't know when we got married.
Right. Yeah, it's okay too. Like when you hear, maybe some husbands and wives listening to this tonight, or like when you're listening to a preacher talk about, this is what I think you should do. This is how we do it in our home. It's okay for you to, when you hear that stuff, say, yeah, that wouldn't work in our house.
Yeah. We've done that.
Yeah.
With stuff.
Yeah.
That would not work.
We hear preachers get up all the time and give like advice. This is how we've always done in our home. We're like, yeah, that wouldn't work. Mm-mm. That wouldn't work in the McMurtry house.
No.
So, but then other times too, you hear things like, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's what we need for our situation. So that's what people who know how to think critically and who have a brain, how they do things. And so, some of the stuff we talked about tonight, it's not going to work. Some of you men, you tell your wife to shut their face, you're sleeping on the couch. It's not going to work. So, so it's okay for you to use common sense. Okay. But then, I've been doing everything I can to run off all the weirdo robots from me and stuff. But some of the robots. We've done a good job. Yeah. Some of the robots, you're going to go, some of you guys, you're going to go home to your wife and you're going to do everything exactly as I said in my situation. And your wife is a completely different woman with a different personality. You're not me. You got to learn to take, take what's there and leave what you don't need. Well,
and love your wife for who she is. That's what makes me feel the most loved, is when you love me, you love Cassandra, you love my personality. It doesn't matter what really anyone else out there says, as long as you're okay with me. And I think most women and men, I mean, you want to be accepted. You don't want me nitpicking everything you do. You don't want me trying to change you. I gave up on that a long time ago. That's not even a battle I want to fight. I just accept you and love you for who you are. And I think that's really what any human being wants, isn't it? Even our kids. They want that too. So I think if you have that mindset, then everything, and then you keep God first, everything will fall into place. You know, so I don't know.
Yeah, you just, we occasionally, she gets a lot more than I do, just, people reaching out, and, and I get some of it too.
I have lots of women reaching out to me.
It's just like some of the situations that are out there, I swear people, they don't know how to think.
No.
They're not using any common sense.
Yeah.
And then and you know what I think people are really doing? A lot of times sometimes too, people will blame the preacher that everyone who's doing crazy stuff is following. But it's usually not that preacher's fault, even if the guy's a little over the top. It's just people use them as the excuse.
Yeah.
Because they want to justify stupid behavior. And so they'll take, some extreme thing that somebody said, literally, and they'll like quote that person, you must have a problem with this preacher. No, you're an idiot. You don't know how to apply things properly. And so, so they're either making an excuse or they're just a dumb robot. And people have got to learn to use some common sense.
Yep. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Beth wants you to come on again. I told you, they like it when you come on.
Yeah.
We weren't really long.
No.
He likes to talk a lot. But it's one of those things that I haven't tried to change. My dad used to say, and this is where he reminds me of my dad. My dad used to say, I can take a short story and make it long. That's him. He could take a short story, and Chloe gets that from you too. And Allie. So lots of similarities, but it's one of the things I love about him. So, all right, thanks for joining me.
All right.
You do all that stuff. So we'll see you ladies next week, probably me solo, but see you next week.